Good evening and welcome to round 4 of the AK Racing Supercar Championship from Pukekohe Park Raceway here in New Zealand. So there's been a little bit of upheaval since the previous round at Symmons Plains. Obviously there were some issues that we encountered particularly during the second race, but it did plague both Race 1 and Race 2, mainly to do with the pit stops and the timing, and also the number of drivers out on circuit. So there's been a couple changes. Some drivers have been, unfortunately, had to drop out and been moved and shuffled down to Super 2, and the grid size has been obviously made a little bit smaller this round, and from obviously for the remainder of the series. So unfortunate for those guys that had to drop down, but I think the experiment of having so many cars on circuit in the end was proven that it's just a little bit too chaotic and there's too many cars out on the circuit. That said though, we did have some good racing. Unfortunately, what was caught at the end of the second race there, even though it was in the game not counted for position due to the timing, it was actually a last lap, last corner overtake. And it would have been for the lead had the timing been obviously correct. But due to drivers having to go through the pit lane, and when you pitted, it automatically pretty much just put your lap down. It didn't count your lap when you entered the pit lane. It didn't say you crossed the start-finish line. So that's what caused the issue there. Hopefully for the remainder of the season we do not have those issues. But that's for obviously us to see, find out and test as the season goes on prior to each round. Anyway, we're just in, I do believe the drivers are in the drivers briefing at the moment, but so they're just obviously listening to the race director go through obviously what's going on this evening. Obviously tonight, as you can see on your screen, it is a super sprint event with two races in the super sprint events. Once again, the first race is 18 laps, just like Symmons Plains, but the second race is not 86, it's 77 this week. Around, as you can see, Pukekohe Park Raceway, New Zealand, 11 turns, 2.841 kilometres long. Obviously, it was changed in, I do really think it was 2012, 2013, around that time, where that chicane, as you can see, that little back straight there, that wasn't there in the past, is there now. It's brought some interesting moments. I do believe the Win Cup, and I think it was Winterbottom, having a bit of a tangle there, I think in the inaugural year when they did put the chicane in as well. Obviously for a bit of safety and for some overtaking as well, that chicane is put in, and I have to say it's been a welcome addition, I think, for at least the racing side of it anyway, because we have seen cars being able to pass through there and then stick with cars side by side through there and also pass at the hairpin a little bit later on as well. Anyway, it's ticked over to qualifying. So let's get out there and check out this on-track action. If I can skip ahead and find a car, that is. There we are. So Kortum, first car out on the circuit. Not as many cars out there this week. Obviously, there is a reduction in grid size for the remainder of the season, but there's not too many, at least from what I saw, not too many people in the server this week as well. So obviously a few people busy and not able to make it. Bit unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And just having a look at the practice times during the week, we see Andrew O'Hara topping both sessions, or both the race server and the practice server. The fastest overall lap we've seen so far is a 102.815. And the second fastest time was by Munro it's an ultimate 102.9. So only two drivers in the 9s, but there's quite a number of drivers in the low 3s as well. Anyway, we'll ride on board Mr. Kortum and see how he attacks the Pukekohe Park Raceway. Kortum's fastest in the race server, at least, being a 103.321. That's his time that he'll want to beat. And he's actually the fastest man in the first sector at least going by P Tracker or P Tracker in the times here. So nice and smooth out of the hairpin. Now through the final 2 turns, and you will see when you go through the TV cameras, broadcast cameras, just how bumpy these final couple of corners are. To the line goes Kortum, and he starts off at 103.8, so solid start for him. But he's been immediately being passed by fellow Nissan driver Munro, 103.4. And then a number of 4s and 5s. And I thought now up into P4 as well. In fact, we'll just sit here. The turn 1, 2 and 3 chicane. See, these couple corners are vital for setting a good lap time, because if you get that chicane wrong, it's going to compromise you for turn 4 just to your left of screen. And there's a big, well, the longest straight on the circuit. So if you get this chicane wrong, you're going to be getting quite a lot of time loss because of that. But Munro currently fastest man on the circuit. Thornton coming up to a lot of traffic. And we've got Keane now. He's moved up into P7 in the Team 18 car. There also has been a reshuffle of teams. The Preston Hire car and the Irwin Tools car are both now part of Team 18, just like they are in real life. We've also had Reed jump up into P2, and now Delaney now, just as I say that, up into P2 in the Castrol car. Obviously he's changed teams as well. So he was having a pretty decent run in one of the races there. I think it was race 1. Perhaps race 2, I can't quite remember, but Delaney was having a good run, his best run of the season, making some nice overtakes and travelling on quite nicely pace-wise, but a problem with his wheel, we thought so at the time, unfortunately leading to a DNF for him, and Kortum now up into P3, so it's a Nissan Altima 1, 2 and 3, and Kortum in the obviously Silver Fern inspired Plus Fitness car. We're hoping to do those colours proud and grab a win or a pole position here. Yet to see O'Hara set a lap time just yet. Perhaps had a bit of traffic. And Delaney was just about to start a lap, but he's got a bit of traffic in front of him. That's Aaron Thomas, I believe. Yeah, it is Aaron Thomas. So there's only one Milwaukee car now that's been bundled up with the Tickford Racing car. And Delaney getting past him, so not ideal for his lap. And Rusty Hall on his first proper flying lap moves him up to P5, but still Nissan stranglehold in the top 3. And a bit sideways there out of turn 4. In fact, right on board the Walkinshaw Andretti United driver. See, very vital braking zone here. Slaughter moves up to P8 there. Turning a little bit too early there. And in fact, I think he's backed out. It sees the traffic in front of him. And he's decided he's just going to bide his time, cool down the tyres a little bit and go again. One of the Bodlow cars up ahead. And there's his teammate there in the back. And now Reed now up into P2 on a 103.6. Cotter up there. So both the Penrite Erebus racing cars second and third now. See Reed, our reigning champion. So it's quite close at the moment. Top 5 separated by less than a tenth. Or sorry, less than 2/10 of a second. Kortum now replying to the Erebus duo and moving up into P3. So Nissan 1, 3, 5. And ZB Commodore 2, 4 and 6. And the first of the Ford Mustang Staunton in P7. And Lauder now moving up into P8. Oh, the big lock-up at turn 1 there. And he's going to abort this one. Still yet to see O'Hara out there on the circuit. We'll have a look and see if he's setting a lap time. We've also got Hine out there as well. Now, here's one to look out for. He was the... See, I think he set the 3rd fastest overall time in practice. With a, I think it was a 1:03.0 or a 1:02.9. It was one of the two. I think it was a 1:03.0. So he's one to look out for, and certainly a contender for pole position here for a race 1. A little bit of traffic in front of him, so he may just back out of it here on his outlap as Brock moves up into P12. The Red Bull Holden racing cars. I believe that's Dominiak in front of him. And looks like that's Lauder perhaps behind him on the circuit as well. But we'll watch a lap of the Machinery House driver. There's Dominiak all over the place. He's set to PB, but could probably find a 10th or 2 if he had kept all 4 tyres on the circuit there. Lights ablaze for Hine. And let's see what he can do. He'll be hoping he doesn't quite catch the Red Bull Holden racing car in front of him. But it looks like he's had a little bit of an off, but it shouldn't cost Hine any lap time unless he was off-put by the car sort of having a half spin in front of him. Munro still currently topping the timesheets in the Rabble Club Nissan Altima. With Reed P2, Cortum P3. And Hine sliding it there through the chicane. Not quite using all the road there. Still a couple inches to the left that he could use, but still nice and smooth on... Oh, I was going to say nice and smooth on the exit, but a little bit of a wobble as French sets a lap that moves him to 18th on the grid. And one of the more famous shots in Supercars, that one, the last corner there at Pukekohe. Hine crosses the line and immediately goes P6 on a 1:03.7. So there's still a little bit more in it for him. And we'll stick with him for another lap just to see how he goes. This time there is traffic in front of him. In fact, quite a number of cars involved. Yeah, that slide cost him a lot of time. And back to the pits he goes. Got Munro on another flying lap. So that was who was behind him. He's got one of the Penrite Erebus racing cars down the road from him. But he shouldn't catch them unless those cars in front of him all start slowing down. Fortunately, don't have sector splits to bring up for you. Still pushing though, so they must be quite close. Now through the final 2 corners, a little bit of a lift. Doesn't want to run too wide and have to lift too much for this final corner. Uses all the road and a little bit more sideways, and he just... Well, no, I was going to say just avoids the wall, but he doesn't. It's still a 1:03.8, but in real life that would be a totaled car, or a very heavily damaged one. But being a sim, you can, just go click on the pit button, and straight into the pits he goes, and he's going to go around once again. And current second place man, Reed, sort of got a little bit of traffic in front of him. We'll stick with him for the remainder of the lap. Still 9 minutes remaining here in qualifying for race 1. And just getting word in the chat, Andrew O'Hara in a bit of a blackout at the moment, so a bit of a shame for him. Hopefully he can jump into the server and is able to race. As Cortum now moves up into second. Dominiak moves up to 13th, but Reed sneaks ahead in the race for pole position, half a 10th in front of Munro. Now reigning champ, current second place man in the standings, looking to make hay while the sun shines, with O'Hara currently having those issues. Looks like he's going to go back to the pits, or at least slow down with all that traffic in front of him. Caught him now on a lap, so we'll stick with him, see how he goes as Eaton moves up to P12 on a 104.0. So not a lot of field spread. 1 second separating first from 17th. So qualifying, one feels, is going to be mighty important around here. There is places to overtake, but there's not a lot of places to make up time. So if the driver in front doesn't make too many mistakes, it's going to be difficult to get by, as Duro now moves up into 11th, and then we see Brock now moving up to 11th. That's all happening at the moment. So now right on board Corcham as he continues on here. Slamming down the gears, just missed the apex, or perhaps he just doesn't want to use the curve for the initial part of the chicane. Hits the apex with the second. Little bit of opposite lock on the exit, but still not too bad a lap so far from what we've seen. Kisses the apex at the hairpin. A little bit of a slide on the exit once again, but nothing too disconcerting for him. Using a lot of the curb at the penultimate corner. Bit of a bounce, bit of a jiggle. And much better out of the final corner. What will he do? 103.464. Not quite enough. It does move him up into P2. But there is a cigarette paper cup covering the top three at the moment. As it looks like Corson now will go back to the pits. And we'll just cut to Matt Cotter out there on the circuit. Ooh, a bit of a slide there through the chicane. Not ideal for him. Not on this lap anyway. And in fact, he's backing out of it completely. So we'll jump down to the next driver in the list. Delaney, big slide out of the hairpin. And again, another driver backing out of his louder now. Moves up into P8, into the top 10. And we'll jump over to Hines, see how he's travelling. Looks like he's pushing hard out there. In amongst a little bit of traffic. He's got Thomas there in front of him. Thomas sort of missing the apex there. So Hines shouldn't catch him unless Thomas has a bit of an off in the final couple of corners here. Out wide, tucking it in. Again, a little bit of curve. Got to watch the bumps. A little bit of curve for him. The final corner. Don't run too wide and clip that grass as we saw earlier. And across the line up into P2 with the exact same time as Reed. But because Reed set the time first, he is currently sitting in first. And now Munro to the top on a 103.076. So there's the marker. We did see the fastest time overall in the practice service being a 102.8. But it's a number of drivers with a 103.0 and a 103.1. So it is obtainable, but it's going to be difficult. May even need a help with a little bit of a slipstream down this straight if you've got a teammate. But Munro now to the top. It's been quite handy in a lot of the qualifying sessions in the past couple rounds, but his big problem has been, see, in the races he's sort of fallen away just a little bit, so he'll be hoping if he does stay here on the front row and in pole position, he can just have a couple clean races and get his championship charge back on track. Just having looks like a little bit of lag there as he's just warping left and right. He's going to go around for another lap. So it looked like he backed out of the last one. He's going again. So right on board, our current driver sitting atop of the standings. And a little bit wide there at turn 1. That's going to compromise him for turns 2 and 3 here. A little bit wide there for the entry of turn 4. Still not too bad now. Nice long run. The turn 5 and 6 chicane. Slamming down the gears. Right and left. Don't get too much wheel spin. And it looks like he's backing out of it. So, still on pole position, but couldn't quite get it together on that one. And we've got Josh Lynn now only boost mobile racing car in the server at the moment. Currently sitting in 21st place as Matt Cotter improves. So that makes it now an Erebus, Penrite Erebus 2-3. Oh, he tries to take a little bit too much curb at the chicane there, and a bit of airtime. There. So we've got Reed cut to him all over the curb there. Penultimate corner, pushing very, very hard. But he's not going to improve there. 103.7. Consistent lap times, but he wants to go and find a couple tenths as opposed to losing a couple tenths. So see Thomas at 105.0 there down the bottom. As you can see, as we just sit here and just pan out just the number of cars out on the circuit. We'll just have a look. So we see Ches now. He sets his personal best, 104.3, only 1.3 off, but that makes him, 19th. So that just shows how close the field spread is here at Pukekohe. And I think there's a 2/10 gap between first and second as well. And if Ches could find 2/10, he'd move up almost 3 spots. So he outbrakes himself there for turn 5. And I compromise him just a little bit. One second down there at the hairpin at the second split. To the bumpy final corner. Don't run too wide on the grass, which he's done. It's going to compromise him a little bit. Would have perhaps lifted just a touch. Perhaps even got a track cut there, because it did give him a time. Through turn 1, you've got to set yourself up for turns 2 and 3. Kisses the curb at turn 2. Doesn't go right out to the outside. It's probably compromised him. And anyway, he's backed out of it with 30 seconds remaining. So that's his session done and dusted. We've got Munro starting on a lap. So this will be his last chance to improve. To see Greg Brock move up into P11. He'll get another lap in as Cortum now moves up into third. So Nissan 1 and 3 at the moment. Munro kissing the curb. Turn 5 through turn 6. Now turn 7. Want to set yourself up for the hairpin using all the road. Turns in a little bit later than what we've seen from most others so far, which will open up the exit. Don't have to worry too much about that corner. Now the penultimate one. Got to watch the bumps. Again, you don't want to overcommit, otherwise you'll ruin your line for the final corner. Now the run to the line, and he does not improve, so that's his session done and dusted. Now, what can Cortum do? Again, he's using a lot of curb at the penultimate corner to try and set up a decent entry to the final corner. Almost onto the grass on the exit. Cortum to the line, and he does not improve as time expires. So now we're just waiting as we see one of the Bottle cars there very wide on the exit, and that's his lap done and dusted. Now I think there's Birchall in the super cheap car across the line. Doesn't improve. That's him done and dusted. So we're just waiting for, I believe, Thornton now. I think he's the only driver out on circuit. In fact, that was Thornton there that had just crossed the start-finish line. So that is qualifying done and dusted, with Munro taking pole position in the 185 Nissan Ultimate for Rabble Club Racing. Matt Cotter joining him on the front row. And then we have Cortum third, High in fourth, right at the end there. Well, it's put him fourth, even though Reed set the time first. They're both sharing a 103.433. So instead, of course, not quite up to date with real-life racing, because it should be Reed in fourth, High in fifth. But anyway, High in fourth, Reed fifth, Delaney in P6 in the Castrol Nissan Altima. Thornton P7 in the 16 Ford Mustang. Got Hall for Walkinshaw, Andretti United in 8th, Lauder 9th, and Birchall rounding out the top 10. Alright, well, we might as well take a look at the championship standings while we wait. And as you can see on your screen, Andrew O'Hara leading the championship on 833 points. Handy buffer, but was unable to get into the server due to a power outage at the moment. So hopefully he can get in at some point tonight and sort of defend his championship lead. Otherwise, he'll find himself down possibly even 4 or 5 spots in the championship standings. Reed there in second, Cotter in third. So Penrite Erebus Racing having a great season once again. And we have Corcham in P4 on 712 points. Hine in P5 there. He's also having a good season. He's also had a little bit of bad luck. He was one of the drivers caught out there at Symmons Plains with the timing issue. Munro P6. Been up and down. Has had some really good qualifying pace. Hasn't quite been able to put it together in the races. But here at the moment, he's giving himself every opportunity to kickstart his championship fight. Then we have Delaney in P7. He's had a bit of a rough start to the championship, starting P6 here for race 1. He'll be hoping to just pick up some points and nag a decent result and get his championship hopes underway. Courtier in P8. Fraser in P9. Neither of them here this evening, and neither is Kurt Stenberg in P10. He was also absent at the last round at Symmons Plains. Alright, flipping over the page, and we have Duro sitting in P11 once again. He sort of made that his home. He sat there the last couple rounds. Currently sitting in 11th, 463 points for him. Only 5 points adrift is Brock on 458. A little bit of a gap to Eaton in 13th. And then Rusty Hall in 14th on 409. Thornton in 15th place on 394. His form sort of come up a little bit in the last couple of rounds. So interesting to see where he shakes up after this round, because his form certainly has been a lot better than where his championship standings would indicate. Thomas, he's had a rough start to the championship, but still he's finished and picked up some decent points, and that's why he's 16th on 345. Chaz, bit up and down in the championship so far, but he'll be hoping to have a nice clean couple races and again pick up some decent points. He's sitting in 17th. Keys on 310 in 18th. Lynn on 303. He'll be, the team will be right behind him this evening with O'Hara struggling to make it back for this one. And then and then Guttison on 283, rounding out the top 20. Then over the page to the Teams Championship, and obviously Penrite Erebus Racing, currently quite a handy 240 point, or 40 point gap over Team Castrol Plus Fitness, and Boost Mobile in third place on 1136 points, obviously being carried by Andrew O'Hara for the most part. Walkinshaw Andretti United sitting in fourth place, quite a ways back with 300 points adrift. So I reckon there's going to be obviously a couple battles. I think we're probably going to see Castrol and Erebus battle it out for the Teams Championship. Boost probably going to be out on their own unless Lynn can pick up his pace a little bit as the season goes on. And then there's going to be a massive battle for fourth place in the championship with obviously Walkinshaw and Andretti United, A63, Tickford on 822, Rabble Club. I reckon we'll see them obviously move up a few spots because their form's been quite good as of late. Machinery House in 772. Obviously one driver here this evening. They'll be struggling, but still chance to get up there. Techno have moved up a bit. Anyway, we're just about to get underway. Alright, one light just about to go, and we are racing, and our pole sitter has disappeared there. Anyway, we are away. Cotter leads away. I don't know where Munro was. Perhaps had a penalty of some kind, and that's why he didn't start, but we had a number of cars off in the back there. But Cotter leads away, and they've got Hine, Cortum, Reed. Brock's had a fantastic start outside the top 10, now into P5, then Delaney, Birchall, Hall, Lauder, Duro, Eaton, King, Keys, Lynn, Ches, Thomas, Payne, French, Phillips, Thornton, Dominiak, and Munro. So Munro, I think he's starting from the pit lane. So he perhaps had a penalty. I haven't checked. I do apologise. In fact, that looks like Hine off the road there, and then he's been collected by one of the. I think that was Hall. It's collected him on the exit of the chicane there. So big incident, and Hine is going to have to wait for the field to go by. So disaster for the machinery house driver from the top 4 all the way to the back, and that's Munro there, off having his own little adventure at the first chicane. So it's all happening down there at turn 5 and 6. And in fact, Munro to the pit, so a bit of a disaster going on. Started from pole, and once again, the gremlin's in the race. He's able to do some fantastic laps in qualifying, but just the race is not going his way. So disaster for Munro. And Hine also entering into the pit lane, so perhaps a jump start or some damage, or getting a compulsory pit stop out of the way. And just wants to get some clean running in. Well, he hasn't pitted, so drive-through, it seems. Perhaps the game's giving him a drive-through for cutting the chicane. So Cotter leads away, and Delaney up into 4th. And that's like Brock out braking himself. He's got Lauder for company now after that little lock-up. And Duro and Keane battling out. So with a couple of these front runners obviously not here, and obviously a couple of them having issues, we've got some unfamiliar faces in some unfamiliar territory. At the moment, Brock just struggling a little bit. Lauder all over the back of him, and that's allowing Duro and Keane also to join the fight. As early on, 103.8 for Cotter. That would have been fairly handy in qualifying. Obviously, you don't need full fuel loads for this first sprint race, which is 18 laps. But still need a little bit of fuel. So Birchall in P5. He's also had a nice solid start, avoided the carnage. And looking to pick up decent points haul for Super Cheap Auto Racing. And Delaney at the moment, he's looking very, very racy. All over the back of Reed, second place man in the championship standings, reigning champion. Looks like Cortum not too far away from Cotter as well. But there's a little bit of a gap between Cortum and Reed. Delaney straddles the curbs quite nicely at the penultimate corner there. Set him up nicely for the final corner. And that's allowing him to stick with Reed. Of course, on fastest lap of the race, 103.5. So these front 4 comfortably faster than the next group. Birchall in the 104s. He's a couple tenths faster than the rest. With pretty much from 5th all the way down to 10th, all in the 4s, and then everyone after in the 5s and 6s. Has got Phillips and Hall into the pits. Perhaps getting their pit stop out of the way. Or perhaps have a drive through themselves. Don't know. So into the chicane they go. So Keane having a little bit of a look as Brock out brakes himself. He's done that already in this race. Did it on lap 2 and he's done it again on lap 4. That's allowed Lauder to get by. And now Duro, he's going to want to get by. He won't want to get balked and lose out to Keane in behind. He has a look, shows the nose, and Brock at the last minute gives him the space. Brock holds on. If anything, that's compromised Duro now. Now Keane, he'll be looking to get a move done, but you can't do that at the final 2 corners. We have seen drivers sort of try and lean on each other here, and that's when we've seen some big accidents. There's Brock wide and Keane wide, both on the grass. And Keane's lucky there's no one right behind him, and he's able just to move straight back onto the circuit. Also lucky he didn't end up on the wall on the opposite side of the track. As you can see, nice battles in this mid-pack. See the front 4, obviously separated. Not by much at all. That's your top 4. They've got to wait a little bit for Birchall, who's probably in store for quite a quiet race 1 here. As we see Lauder do a Brock and outbrake himself at turn number 5 there. A number of drivers actually outbraking themselves. Duro under pressure from Keane as Keane gets it sideways coming out of turn 6. Duro having a look, big lock up as well as Brock, and now he's lost the back end trying to get under power. And Keane is going to try and sweep around the outside. He's going to do it. Brock's in the pits for his compulsory pit stop. And around the outside goes Keane, so nice driving from Keane. But quite a bit of action already in the first 6 laps. Some mistakes, some pit stops, and some drama with regards to the championship as well. But Brock in the pits, so that is definitely serving a pit stop and not a drive-through. Delaney has had a decent, looks like he's had a decent half a lap, and he's caught, or halved the gap that he had to read. It was about a second. Cut it down now to half a second. Now he's starting to apply a little bit of heat to that Penrite Erebus ZB Commodore. Taking a little bit of a different line out of the hairpin. It's one of the things about obviously this Pukekohe circuit is you can a number of places take some different lines through some of the corners. The hairpin being one of them. You can turn in a little bit early, you can turn in a little bit later. You can play around with the exit just a little bit. Oh, there's a little bit of traffic. Dominiak exiting the pits right in front of Reed and Delaney, and a little bit of contact, and thankfully it didn't look like it cost Delaney too much time, and it didn't spin Dominiak around, but certainly very, very awkward. And that's another thing of this Pukekohe circuit, the pit lane exit. It's not one of the better ones on the supercar calendar. It feeds right out onto the racing line. And being a very short lap as well, it will put drivers a lap down, and drivers that are a little bit further back will end up coming out right in front and with the leaders. So that's something to look out for definitely in race 2 as well. So, top 4 all staying out at the moment. Birchall is going around as well. And Lauder into the pits. Keane's going to go on. Duro's pitting. Ches is staying out. Eaton is staying out. And I'm just trying to have a look. Hine pitted. He had a drive through though. The opening lap. So he cuts a big slide at turn 5. And his gap at the front's actually come down just a little bit. Caught him being quite smooth in these last couple of laps, and well, just cuts a cotter. It's sideways out of the hairpin, sideways through turn 5. So his rear tyres, perhaps he's leaning on them just a little bit too much, and they're starting just to overheat a little bit. And this is just the 18 lap race, so in the longer distance one, he's going to have to watch himself. So we've got Keys and Thornton battling it out. Thornton now under pressure from, well, actually one of the Rabble Club cars. Once again, Delaney just sticking with Reed, but not quite fast enough to get a move done. And we've got a car off. It's one of the Harvey Norman cars off in the background. That's Crab. So the gravel very, very sticky. Or perhaps he's just waiting for people to go by, as you see a number of drivers in the pit. So that's Ches, Eaton and Keys all in the pit lane. And Crab looks like he's going to get out of the way for Keane in the Preston Hire Team 18 car. Currently alone on the circuit, but with the pit stops, he hasn't pitted yet. Obviously he'll be keeping an eye on where Brock, and I'm trying to think who was with Brock at the time as well. But certainly Brock was definitely one of those guys who was battling.
Have race to go.
We've got Corton, the first of our leaders, into the pit lane. And right on board with his pit stop and see how quick it is. And Keane on that lap, actually setting a personal best for the race, 1:04.0. And Corton, where will he end up? And I do believe that's Lauder, I think. No, Munro. So Munro has got going again, vitally for him. He's down in 22nd. Obviously he was scheduled to start from pole position, but some issues meant he started from the pit lane and then obviously having a little half spin down at turn 5 as well. Caught him. He's under attack from Thornton. I don't think... I'm trying to work out if Thornton has pitted. I don't think he has. And around the outside goes Caughton. He holds on to that position, but that vitally for him, that's going to cost him a bit of time. So he would have wanted a bit of clear air. He's got Birchall now in the pits. But yeah, Caughton would have wanted some clear air, not to battle anybody, set some quick lap times and undercut, obviously, Cotter. But instead, he's had to deal with Thornton. And Munro is trying to unlap himself. He's got Keane in the pit lane as well. And he's just exited the pits now. Where will he feed out? And that's Hine that's gone past him. So Hine, I don't know, is pitted. There's Brock that he was battling. And that is Lauder as well. So he's feeded out comfortably in front of, obviously, the battle that he was amongst before the pit stop started. About 2 seconds or so in front of those guys. And it looks like Cotter and Reed continuing on. No, Reed not continuing on. So first the Erebus drivers in the pits. Delaney now in the pits. Now where Caughton is just at the hairpin. So now we'll just sit here and we'll see where these guys turn out. Because I reckon it's going to be very, very close. But I think Caughton may have lost a little bit too much time sort of having to deal with that traffic just after he pitted. There's the Rabble Club car. There's Reed. And there's Caughton. And there's Delaney. And around the outside goes Caughton. So he's just done it. Just held on. But his laps are a couple laps older. And those couple guys behind him. Gap's around about the same. Around about a second. But Reed's actually got to watch it because obviously he's on cold tyres and low pressures at the moment. And now we've got Hine into the pits. So doing his compulsory pit stop. Obviously he had that drive through after that first lap. We'll see kerfuffle. Now we've got Cotter into the pit lane as well. So here's another one to watch. This little pit stop sequence. So once again, we'll just sit here on the pit straight as Dominiak goes by, and we wait for Cotter to exit on the left. We wait for Caughton, Reed, and Delaney to come around on the right. And there is Cotter, and he's got the lead, and he's got it comfortably. So Cotter into the lead, but he's just going to watch this next lap and a half. As he's on cold tyres, no tyre warmers in Supercars, but there it is. There's first, a lap car, and then second, third, a lap car, and fourth. So the gaps have sort of spread out just a little bit, but Cotter playing the strategy game, not being caught up in lap traffic, or if he was, it didn't cost him too much time because he is now comfortably in front of Caughton. That's it though, big lock up at turn 5, and that's going to cost him a lot of time. Where is Caughton? He's right there, so he's lost out to one of the lap cars. Got a bit of slide coming on, and now Caughton now, he can apply the pressure. He's on warm tyres. His eruptive temperature is just going to send it. He had to send it really, a little bit of contact. Cotter's going to try and get him on the switchback, but to no avail. And that is a costly mistake from Cotter. On cold tyres, just being a little bit too adventurous, a little bit overconfident. And that mistake at turn 5 costing him at least the lead for now. But he's got 5 laps to get back by into the lead. But as we've seen so far with these front guys, there's not much pace differential between the two. And that has cost him... Oh, and he's had another big slide under braking for turn 2. He's held it, but that's allowed Caughton to get away. And that's bringing Reed into play. We've had Delaney now move past Thornton, and that is 4 position. So Delaney trying to get back onto the tail of 3rd place. Now I'm not sure if Thornton's pitted. I don't think he has, and Thornton, well, he's outbroke himself there at turn 5. So that's the end of that little chase of Delaney that he was having after Delaney got by. He's had a little bit of a slide coming out of turn number 7. And Reed, he's also closed in behind Cotter now. So intriguing battle in the top 4. It looks like close battle between the two Shell V-Power DJR Team Penske cars. And we've got Thornton. So Thornton hadn't pitted. He's now into the pit lane. Delaney setting his personal best of the race at 103.7. Fastest man of the top 4. Fastest man on the circuit on the last lap. So right on board Ches in his Ford Mustang. So it looks like they're going to pick up a decent points haul, DJR Team Penske here. Eaton in 10th and Ches in 11th. They've now jumped in front of Thornton, who's just pitted, and they've got Phillips just ahead of them in the Monster Energy Ford Mustang. In fact, it looks like Delaney looking ahead. He's caught up to the back of Reed, so Delaney's on a mission at the moment. And according to Mr. O'Hara in the chat, it's a good 2 to 3 seconds difference between hot and cold tyres. Courson back in the 103s, but Cotter and Reed in the low 104s. Delaney 103.9. So you see Reed bashing the curb at turn 2. A little bit wide there for Reed as well, but it hasn't compromised him too much. In fact, looks like he's got a better exit than Delaney, all things told, because he's just edging away. A little bit of slight under braking there for Delaney. Slight rear locking. We're right on board with him for a lap. Just see how much he's pushing out there. They've actually got, looks like Munro in Delaney's mirrors. He's just hanging around these guys. Obviously Munro qualifying on pole position, but starting from the pit lane and then having an issue there at turn 5 on the opening lap and having to return to the pit. So he's a lap or 2 down, but continuing out there for some good championship points. First 2 drivers in the 103s. Delaney in the 103s. Reed a 104.0. So Delaney looks like he's working his car very, very hard. Doesn't quite get as wide as Reed on this time, and it's sort of compromised his exit just a little bit. So I think if there's one thing Delaney can do is probably for turn 4 there, is just wait to turn in a little bit, get a little bit wider, and then sweep in a little bit later and give him a better exit for a better run here into turn 5. That's it though, much better under braking. So if you can just get a little bit closer, give him a good opportunity to get a move done and get onto the podium. Oh, there's a big lock-up for Reed in front of him though. And Cotter as well. He's not too far away either. But Delaney having his best run of the season. Reed, he's got one more lap to hold on. So that is the top 4 on your screen right there. Delaney setting his personal best on that last lap. Fastest man of the top 4. Now his best bet is into turn 5. Now what does he do? Does he get the run that he needs? Well, there's a bit of a wiggle for Cotter. And immediately Reed going defensive. Delaney following him. Now got to sort of snake down the straights. Old F3 style. But Delaney not quite close enough, but he's much better under braking. He's got one opportunity, I reckon, and that's at the hairpin. So right on board Reed, we can see the Nissan in his mirrors. You can see his teammate in front of him. But no, not going to be close enough is Delaney. So barring a catastrophic mistake, he won't get that job done, get onto the podium. Still, his best run of the season so far as Munro enters the pits. But Courtum will take the win. Made the least amount of mistakes and was quite handy as well. He'll take the win in race 1. Cotter will take 2nd. Reed will hold on for 3rd. Delaney with a 4th place finish. And now we just wait 10 seconds for Birchall. He's had a very, very quiet run, but a very, very handy points for him. And Super Cheap Auto Keen, a very, very good run for Team 18, will finish 6th. Brock, 7th in the end after outbraking himself a few times down there at turn 5. Lauder in 8th. Phillips in 9th in the Monster car. And then the 2 DJR Team Penske cars in Ches, who did get by Eaton. And then we have Duro holding on in the Botlow Falcon. Thornton in 13th. Keys in the other Team 18 car. Hind finishing in 15th after his early dramas. French in 16th. Then we have Josh Lynn in 17th place. Dominiak finishing in 18th. And then Thomas in the 23 Red Racing car finishing in 19th place with, I do believe, Hall a lap down. So yeah, some fantastic racing in this one. The top 5 cars, top 4 cars being a step above. Unfortunately, weren't able to see what Munro was able to do and obviously add to that. So his horror run during the race is continuing, but he does have that pace in the qualifying to give himself every opportunity if he could just sort out those issues during the races. But Cordham taking race 1 here. Cotter second and Reed third. So once again, fantastic points for Penrite Erebus Racing. And, they already were a couple hundred points clear in the team standings, but the way they're going, they're going to wrap it up if they can keep finishing where they are. Because consistently, both drivers are always up there battling for podiums and for wins, while the other teams sort of up and down a little bit. Obviously, the Castrol and Plus Fitness cars, obviously they've got 2 very quick drivers, but Delaney's just had a rough start to the season. He's also been in a different team as well, with some driver changes now, that have taken place. It's moved Delaney into that team, and he's had his best result of the season, which is good to see. All right, well, we'll just take a short break as obviously everything gets sorted for the second race, which will get underway probably 10, maybe 15 minutes time, but we shall be back soon.